Okay, Google. What's today's date?
It's Wednesday, March 4th, 2026.
Okay, Google. Today's news.
Here's the latest news.
Hi, I'm Kim Vanell in Wanganui, New Zealand. It's Wednesday, March 4th. Today, the Pentagon identifies the first US soldiers killed in the Iran war. Mixed messages from the Trump administration on the reason for the US getting involved. As Israel pounds Lebanon, will Hezbollah survive? And primary season is underway with a hotly contested Texas Senate seat heading to a runoff. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes, 7 days a week. But first we have some breaking news. For more, here's my colleague, Kamal Crimmins.
Mojtaba Khomeini, the son of the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has survived US and Israeli assaults so far. That's according to Iranian sources. 55-year-old Mojtaba is one of the most influential figures in the Iranian clerical establishment. He's known as a hardliner with deep ties to the Revolutionary Guards, and he's widely seen as a candidate to succeed his father as the country's next supreme leader. For more on both of these developing stories, stay across Reuters.com and the Reuters app.
The Pentagon has identified 4 US soldiers killed in a drone strike in Kuwait, the first American casualties named in the escalating war with Iran. They were Army reservists from an Iowa-based logistics unit. The youngest, 20-year-old Sergeant Declan Cody, had only enlisted in 2023. The Trump administration is warning lawmakers to expect more casualties. It comes amid criticism from some of a lack of unity on the messaging around the operation from the US. On Monday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio suggested that an adamant Israel effectively forced Washington into the operation.
We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties.
But on Tuesday, Trump said that wasn't the case at all.
Based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand.
Our State Department reporter Simon Lewis has been tracking the administration's messaging.
These messaging wrinkles in the last few days have kind of shown is that a lot of planning went into the strikes themselves, into targeting, into getting all these US forces in the region. What doesn't seem to have been planned out is firstly the messaging of how we're going to sell this to the American people. And we're also seeing there's not much planning on how to prepare US citizens and US embassies and those kind of things in the region. It does seem like a lot of planning went into the strikes themselves and the targeting and the kind of kinetic aspect of this, but it would seem that there's been less thought, less planning that's gone into what happens after.
Rubio has since said that the administration did not strike Iran because of Israel, saying, quote, "This had to happen anyway." While we're in the US, we'll go to Texas, where US Senator John Cornyn and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton are set to square off in a high-stakes runoff for the state's Republican nomination for the Senate. It pits a long-time member of the party's establishment against an insurgent hardliner as the midterm elections kicked off. Neither was able to get past the 50% threshold necessary to win outright in Tuesday's voting, meaning the most expensive Senate primary in history will extend into May. Whoever wins will face state lawmaker James Tallarico, and in North Carolina,
humbled and excited to accept the Democratic nomination to become North Carolina's next United States Senator.
Former Democratic Governor Roy Cooper, after winning his party's nomination for an open Senate seat, a race Democrats say they must win to have any chance of taking control of the chamber. Cooper will face Republican Michael Whatley in November. Ecuador now, where US and Ecuadorian forces have launched joint operations to combat drug trafficking. That's according to the US Southern Command. Details are sparse. The Ecuadorian Defense Ministry says details of the operation are classified. Back to Iran now, and a warning, the next story contains some graphic scenes. In the Iranian city of Minam, grieving parents arrive at the morgue, where dozens of black body bags lie on stretchers or on the floor, the result of a reported US-Israeli attack on a girls' elementary school. Iranian state media says more than 160 people were killed in the strike, which happened in the initial wave of US-Israeli attacks on Saturday. The UN's Human Rights Commission is now calling for an impartial investigation into the attack. Here's their spokesperson, Ravina Shamdasani.
This is absolutely horrific, and I think if there's any image that captures the essence of the destruction, despair, and senselessness and cruelty of this conflict, those are the images.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said the Department of Defense will investigate, adding that he would like to know whose missile was responsible.
Well, clearly the United States will not deliberately target the school. Our objectives are missiles, both the ability to manufacture them, the ability to launch them, and the one-way attack bombs. That will be our focus.
As the U.S.-Israel conflict widens, an Israeli strike on a residential building in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley has killed at least 4 people. It comes after Iran-backed Hezbollah fired drones and missiles at Israel to avenge the killing of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Since then, Israeli troops have pushed further into the country, beyond the positions they already held. Maya Jabali in Beirut has more on how and why the conflict expanded to Lebanon after Hezbollah's move.
It actually took so many people by surprise that we've actually heard some voices express anger and frustration even within Hezbollah's traditional base of support, because they really thought that for once Lebanon would steer clear of the regional melee. So actually we heard from Shiite Lebanese that they were completely floored, they were
a smart speaker. Just ask for the latest news from Reuters 7 days a week. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.
We're just getting started. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. That's what the War Secretary says on day 5 of Operation Epic Fury.
Iran's capabilities are evaporating by the hour, while American strength grows fiercer, smarter, and utterly dominant. More bombers, more fighters are arriving just today.
The PXS says Iran's Air Force is no more. Its navy's at the bottom of the Persian Gulf.
We've taken control of Iran's airspace and waterways without boots on the ground.
And Secretary Hexa says the U.S. will avenge the deaths of the 6 American troops killed, adding Iran's senior leaders are already dead.
The so-called governing council that might have selected a successor, dead, missing, or cowering in bunkers, too terrified to even occupy the same room.
And Fox's Jonathan Savage reports
the state funeral of Iran's assassinated Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, scheduled for today, has now been postponed. As Iran continues to retaliate, Turkey says NATO defenses have intercepted a ballistic missile launched from Iran as it approached Turkish airspace.
Iran is also targeting Israel again.
Right now we have an incoming Iranian ballistic missile fire, an early alert went down to phones telling people to head into bomb shelters. And right now there are no interceptions behind me, but it's coming again in what appears to be another coordinated attack between Iran and their Lebanese militant group, Proxy Hezbollah.
That's Fox's Trey Hughes, who's wearing a combat helmet in Tel Aviv. At the House, 2 different topics in one hearing. Republican Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer focusing on years of fraud into the state.
Many of them current employees of Democrats who say they were ignored, retaliated against, and even surveilled for raising concern.
But House Democrats, including Robert Garcia, are focused on controversial immigration enforcement in Minneapolis.
Peaceful Americans have been killed by federal officers and agents and labeled them as domestic terrorists.
America's listening to Fox News.
This is Ainsley Earhart. Thank you for joining me for the 52-episode podcast series, The Life of Jesus.
A listening experience that will provide hope, comfort, and understanding of the greatest story ever told. Listen and follow the know at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
On Wall Street, we're seeing some gains. The day after a big sell-off, the Dow is adding 60 points. The NASDAQ is up 164. The S&P 500 has a 19-point rise. The price of oil is down a dime, staying around $74 a barrel after its recent spike up in the Middle East conflict.
President Trump says if necessary, the Navy will escort tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow passage used to transit about 20% of the global oil supply. In a Truth Social post, the president also says he's ordering the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation to offer insurance and risk guarantees to shipping lines. Both moves are intended to stabilize the oil market.
As soon as this ends, those prices are going to drop, I believe, lower than even before.
At the White House, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
The price at the gas pump is surging another 9 cents this morning. AAA's national average for regular is $3.19 a gallon. That is up 20 cents in 2 days. We got this update to the economy this morning.
Job creation by private employers bounced back last month. Payroll processing company ADP says private sector employment increased by 63,000 in February. Pay is up 4.5% for the year. ADP's chief economist, Dr. Neela Richardson, says she's seeing an increase in hiring and pay gains remain solid, especially for people staying in their jobs. The premium pay for switching jobs hit a record low in February. Construction, education, and health services employers were hiring last month, and small businesses added jobs. The ADP report is not considered a preview of the monthly employment report, which will be released on Friday. Janiko Sola, Fox News.
Tomorrow, ahead of the monthly jobs report, we'll get weekly jobless claims. I'm Dave Anthony, and this is Fox News.
This Tech Check briefing is sponsored by Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
I'm Seema Bodhi. This is your CNBC Tech Check briefing. Amazon Web Services said late Monday 2 of its data centers were reunited via recurrence and a facility in Bahrain damaged by global strikes, taking the facilities offline. The company's latest acknowledged the outages were caused by global strikes tied to ongoing conflict in the Middle East. AWS warning that instability is likely to continue in the Middle East when operations globally.
Tech Check Briefing is sponsored by Comcast Business. With leading networking and connectivity, advanced cybersecurity, and expert partnership, Comcast Business helps turn today's enterprises into engines of modern business. Powering the engine of modern business. Powering possibilities.
Israel's military said it struck dozens of targets in renewed strikes on Iran, including security command centers in Tehran. Israel's defense minister said any successor to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, who was killed in Israeli strikes over the weekend, is a, quote, target for elimination. The U.S. military said it had struck nearly 2,000 targets in Iran since it began its joint attacks with Israel over the weekend. U.S. forces also destroyed 17 Iranian ships. The U.S. said Iran launched more than 500 ballistic missiles and over 2,000 drones in retaliation, but Washington insists it has significantly weakened Iran's defenses. Asian stocks have plunged with a record-breaking market crash in Seoul amid fears the US-Israel war on Iran will affect oil supplies. Asia is heavily dependent on energy imports shipped through the Strait of Hormuz. The Korean stock exchange dropped more than 12%.
Taking out to Iran, and these are the latest series of pictures of airstrikes hitting the capital, Tehran. In 5 days, US and Israeli attacks have killed at least 1,045 people, and that is according to Iranian state media. Government and military buildings have been targeted. Homes, hospitals, and a UNESCO heritage site have also been damaged in these widespread attacks. Now, Iran does work to pick a new supreme leader. Israel's defense minister says whoever is selected will be a target. On Tuesday, an Israeli strike destroyed a building of the Assembly of Experts in the city of Qom. That's the clerical body tasked with appointing the next supreme leader. Russia's foreign ministry says a nuclear plant in southern Iran is under threat, with strikes happening just kilometers away. Russian technical specialists work on the site at Iran's Bushehr nuclear power plant. Moscow says the US-Israeli bombing campaign is posing a major risk to the site and making it difficult for the UN's nuclear watchdog to monitor the situation. Now, in Washington, senior Trump officials have briefed Congress behind closed doors for a second day justifying the attacks on Iran, but everyone is convinced. Democrats want to vote on a war powers resolution. They accuse the president of breaching the Constitution by authorizing attacks on Iran without congressional approval. Now, the British Prime Minister has told the House of Commons that the crisis in the Middle East requires, quote, a cool head. Keir Starmer making the comments while defending his decision not to allow the United States to use British bases for its attack on Iran. US President Trump has strongly criticized it.
We need to act, therefore, with clarity, with purpose, but with a cool head. The protection of UK nationals is our #1 priority. We're taking action to reduce the threat, with planes in the sky in the region intercepting incoming strikes, deploying more capability to Cyprus, and allowing US planes to use UK bases to take out Iran's capability to strike.
Join us for the latest season of the Doha Debates podcast, with truth-seeking conversations about our modern world. We'll ask big questions and hear different perspectives. I'm Mohammed Hassan, and this season we bring together voices from across the globe to test and challenge ideas, explore meaning, and discuss the issues shaping our lives. Join the conversation on the Doha Debates podcast.
Here's golf
legend John Daly.
Hell yeah, these wins are piling up faster than my divorces. I only spent on Moto, America's social casino. You know I've won a couple of majors. And on Moto, I've won majors, grands, and epic jackpots on their classic Vegas slots with huge bonus rounds. Moto Casino adds new games and awards players free coins every single day. Rip it and spin it on Moto Casino.
Download the Moto Casino app today. Moto Casino, social casino, one more prohibited. No purchase necessary. Visit moto.us for more details.